What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Kondo's Couch. This is episode...
Cuatro.
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 Tro.
Cuatro.
4. And today is a really gloomy day outside, so, if it looks a little darker in here or we're in the Bat Cave, or for our audio listeners, you don't see a difference at all, so good for you. How have you been? Feels like we haven't done a podcast in a while.
I've been good.
You been good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in a while, too.
My gosh.
It's crazy.
That's not true. But today, if you looked at the title of today's podcast and you got nervous or weirded out by it, that's totally understandable. If you completely skipped the title and you just clicked onto the video or you just are going to listen, today we are going to be talking about COVID and more specifically our COVID stories, and just about how the pandemic in the past year has really affected us, for better or for worse. And so as we get started, why don't you start us off with, oh, by the way, I'm Gavin.
I'm Andrea.
So we haven't recorded in so long, I forgot that we're supposed to introduce ourselves. Sorry, I shouldn't assume that everybody knows who we are. Anyway, my love, if you would please read the definition.
Okay. The definition of COVID is an acute respiratory illness in humans caused by coronavirus, capable of producing severe symptoms and in some cases death, especially in older people and those with underlying health conditions.
Yeah, so that's a very fancy way of putting the pandemic that every single person who's listening to this podcast knows about. And we had kind of waited until... there wasn't a time that we were saying like, oh, we were going to wait for this to happen before we talked about it. But as we were discussing what we wanted this next one to be about, it just felt right. So I'm just going to get into it. I talked about this quite a bit during our very first podcast about grief and death and moving on, which you can go listen to wherever you listen to your podcasts or watch your videos. But I want to talk about the death of my grandma, in that, one, it was very, very sudden, and two, that it was caused by COVID and the effects of not just COVID, but the treatment that she was receiving. And, leading up until that, COVID was just the thing that I was dealing with on a global scale like everybody else, wearing a mask, at my work, at the store, when I go visit family, just really being safe, and watching the numbers climb and, for deaths or infected. And it just kind of felt like it was out there. Kind of felt like it was just happening and we were all having to deal with it. And I remember we were on our honeymoon and it was during Thanksgiving, and I remember we FaceTimed in to my family who was having Thanksgiving, and her name is Bachan. I'm not going to call her my grandma. She's my Bachan. Bachan means grandma in Japanese. So Bachan was there at my parents' place, and for a split second I got to talk with her. She wasn't able to attend our wedding, which we will get to in just a moment, actually. And we were just saying hi to her. We loved her. Happy Thanksgiving. Got to see Andrea. Got to see me. It was great just for those few little moments. And then I told her I'll see you when I get back. And I didn't. Because once we got back, she had been taken to the hospital due to catching COVID. She was living in an assisted living facility, or it was
not really.
No,
yeah,
the old folks' home.
It's pretty much what it was.
Yeah.
It was an
retirement
assisted
home.
living.
Retirement.
It was just a retirement home. Mm-hmm.
Living in a retirement home, which it had spread through the retirement home, as we've heard many of those horror stories. And I was texting her almost every day. I love you, thinking about you, can't wait to see you. And she was texting consistently, not like basically every time I text her, she would message me back, I can't wait to see you. I want to see Dallas. I want to, I told her, we want to go to your favorite burger place when you get out. It was one of Dallas's favorite burger places. And then one day the texts stopped. That was after about 5 days or so in the hospital, 6 days in the hospital. And I was informed that she wasn't improving, and so they put her on the ventilator treatment. And because at this time, this was back in November, there was no vaccine or really any cure.
December.
It was December, yes.
It was like...
That's right.
Right before Christmas.
Right before
like
Christmas.
The 22nd or 23rd.
Correct, I'm sorry. Yes. So yeah, but even at that time, the vaccine seemed like a far off dream or idea for the world, and especially for those of us who with hospitalized loved ones. And just shortly after that, within less than 5 days, once again, I received a phone call in the middle of the night and from my parents, and they said, hey, Bacha had a stroke in the day due to just how the treatment was trying to work its way through her body, and she's not going to pull out of it. And so we packed up that night, met my family at the hospital, and I said my goodbyes. And that the death of her has impacted me greatly. Her passing has completely, messed me up with a lot of things. But I think one of the things I kind of glossed over in the way that it affected me was even the way I saw and thought about COVID itself. In that, like I said, it seemed like it was this out there disease. And yeah, so many people were becoming infected. I mean, we've seen millions of people infected, and at this point hundreds of thousands have died. And it wasn't until it became so personal to me that I really said, this is why I've been wearing my mask. This is why I'm hoping for sweeping legislation to help battle it, because it's not just someone on Facebook started a GoFundMe to pay for the funeral costs. It's not just a person on Twitter who, had to celebrate a birthday through a window. It's my family. It was my grandma, who, by all accounts, should still be here. She was not prone to sickness. She lived a very active lifestyle for someone who was 78. Water aerobics. And so even to this day, looking at the way COVID had affected me prior to her death and after, I can say I truly understood the magnitude of it. And I feel so like dumb, like why did it take that? That feels like really selfish of me, but I'm just admitting it. Like I'm just being open, right? Like can I be honest? Mm-hmm. That's me being honest. And the effects of what it had done to states, I had been feeling that, and what it had been doing to the country, but to people individually, that's something I wasn't so fully cognitive of. And but when I say what it is states, this is where we're getting to talk about our wedding, and I want you to jump in and talk about what COVID did to our wedding. Obviously, I'll chime in with some of this too, but take it away.
Well, yeah, and I don't think it necessarily took me losing someone like your grandmother or family being directly affected by it to really change how I was doing things. I worked at a vet in New York, and when you work in the healthcare, in any kind of healthcare, right? Whether it's people or animal, you have to follow the same guidelines as a hospital is having, right? Just because you can't have people coming in and out. For a while, there were some cats that had gotten COVID, so then that became a big deal in our office because now cats can give it it was like a whole thing. Obviously, we don't know if that's even like a thing anymore, but when they're trying to figure out what this virus is, all the things were coming up.
Yeah, that was like back in
middle of the year last year.
Yeah, so it's like nobody had any idea.
Yeah, so and knowing everything that's happening, I remember one time in the office, the New York State had been struggling so much with the pandemic and keeping people alive that they were setting camps at parks to treat people. And they were getting so desperate that they were asking vets to go help people. And they would send us emails from the state, and I was in New Jersey, but they would send us email from New York asking if our vets would be willing to go help people with COVID. Vets who are not even in the medical field for people were having to be pulled because they didn't have enough doctors to help. They just needed people that knew how to find the vein, that knew how to do basic things because there weren't enough nurses, there weren't enough students, there weren't enough interns, there weren't enough residents, there weren't enough of anything that they were pulling from vet's office. Yeah. And that's when it became very real for me being in that atmosphere, because we were the first ones to receive information, the first ones to know that things were running out. How many times our office didn't have masks? For us, we had to keep reusing and putting them in these machines that pretty much like disinfect everything that you put in there. And that's when it really became very real. And an everyday practice. We were required to wear shields. Nobody was allowed inside the building. And I had to deal with a lot of people that weren't happy about that. Yeah. Owners couldn't go in with their pets. In a very basic capacity, like a vet's office. We're not even talking about a hospital. Yeah. We had to take crazy measures.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I've been thinking, I want to jump in and say this, like you were an essential frontline worker.
Absolutely.
Like she said that a moment ago. Like just because she worked with animals, they are treated, whether you know this or not, actually, the same as doctors.
Yeah.
And so it was real for her because she was on the literal front line. Where juxtaposed for me, I was living in the South, where they didn't even want to shut down the state in the first place.
Right.
And the job I had at the time considered itself essential, though I beg to differ. And so the way that we were treated and were talked about the disease and the pandemic was just different. So I just don't want there to be any miscontext that I didn't take it seriously.
Right.
I wore my mask.
It was very different.
It was the mindset. My actions were very serious. I took my son out of daycare for many months, all these things. But I felt like I needed to say that because I think at the end of mine, it made it seem like I didn't care. And then my grandma died. No, literally, I was serious about it.
Right.
But for her, from day zero.
Yeah, from the moment it began, it was immediate change in the way that we even walk down the street, the way you talk to people, how you travel. I was by myself in New York, so completely by myself. I had a grandfather and a grandmother, and my grandmother is just very sick naturally, so she wasn't someone that I was going to go visit because I was in a place where we were in constant contact with people. And we just didn't know, right, what these people were doing. And it was very real from the beginning for me, because one, it didn't allow me to travel, and
we were long distance.
I didn't have anybody. I'm going through a global pandemic by myself in another state. I was blessed that I had a job that didn't shut down in New York. In New York, I don't know, 60% of companies had to close doors because they just couldn't do it. Food places, everything. There were so many people that we knew within our office that their significant others didn't have a job or they had to go work from home. A lot of actors, which is what I moved over there, lost all their jobs because restaurants were closing, which actors usually work in the service industry. So they didn't have jobs. They had to move back home with their parents in wherever their parents were. So I think I was incredibly blessed to actually have a job that didn't close, but because it was a frontier job, right? It was like
frontline.
in the beginning, in the midst of everything, it became very real for me. And it became very real for us as a couple. We have been planning, and I know like a wedding is like so silly, right? Compared to people that have lost people. And it seemed very shallow at the moment. We got engaged while there was a pandemic, so we already had decided that it was going to be like a 26, 28 people wedding as it was. We were not going to have a big wedding. We were going to respect the state laws, and we were going to make sure everybody that attended was being healthy and safe. So we require everybody that was coming to get a COVID test, to give us freedom to be able to enjoy the wedding. We pretty much sent messages about what the requirements within the states were so that they could be prepared when they were traveling. I mean, we did everything we could.
You would have thought we were planning a concert. You would have thought we were planning friggin' Coachella.
And it was family. It was literally just parents, grandparents, aunts, and then we siblings. Each got to choose two of our bestest friends and their significant others. So altogether it was 28 people. That already included the photographer, and that already included our pastor. So, and then we had planned all of this, had paid for pretty much everything. And then 1 week before the wedding, literally 7 days before the wedding, the state of New York mandated a 10 people max per social gathering. So because we had, especially my parents were very careful. My brother has asthma, my grandmother, it's older, so they pretty much said this is the law, we're just not feel comfortable having that many people in a room, even though we know most of these people, but they're traveling from all over the country. We had people in Texas, we had people in New Hampshire, we had Louisiana. People in North Carolina, Louisiana. They were coming from all over. So we ended up 1 week before
literally 7 days
everything, canceling about 90% of our whole wedding.
The only thing we knew for sure was that we had bought plane tickets to our honeymoon, and those were not going to get refunded.
And those were non-refundable.
So,
but we had paid for cake. We had paid for
your dress.
Decor. I already had a dress. I already had put a down payment on hair and makeup for me and my mom. We were both getting hair and makeup. I mean, we had family that had already invested in... I mean, flights were already in order because this was 7 days before the wedding. The people already had hotels. Our closest friend, we had to... It was like 2 days of talking to parents about what we were going to do. And then it was just, okay, we can't lose all the money we invested, because we had already paid for the cake, we had already paid for the decor. I mean, all the things.
All the flights,
everything. So what we decided to do was people can get refunded their flights back. And then we decided to just do a 10 people wedding, which ended up actually being 8, which was photographer, our officiant, mom and dad for his side, mom and dad for my side, and my little brother, because we couldn't just leave him anywhere. My other brother couldn't even come, and his siblings didn't come either. So we decided to do it that small so we could still keep the cake, we could still keep the makeup and hair. Our photographer was still bound to fly over here. We had already paid for his flight and our officiant. And the hardest part that we had was that instead of doing it in New York, we had to then move it to New Jersey because we couldn't find a space that we could bring everybody and stay in one place.
Our plan was, because it was already going to be so small, 30 people or less, we had actually rented a 4-story, beautiful loft, a townhome. In Brooklyn. And it had a really great outdoor area. It was beautiful. The people that were letting us use it were amazing. And even to the point of saying, look, this shutdown just happened, 10 people only. You can still have it. I won't say anything. But I can't account for my neighbors. And that's and not that we were like 100% sold on breaking the law. I'll tell you what, the $1,000 per person fine that you would have received, definitely was the straw that broke that.
I mean, it would have been $25,000.
Yeah. So
we decided not to. Like, we got to a point where we were like, we're just not gonna put our family in that position. We don't have the money for it, and we knew that at the end of the day, what mattered was that he was gonna be there, I was gonna be there. We really wanted pictures. That was a non-negotiable for us, and our officiant. And then our parents were pretty much, whatever you do, we're there, whatever you decide to do. So we ended up doing it. We found the place that we were going to have it 3 days before the wedding. Oh, no, 2.
No, 2 days before the wedding.
Was on a Friday. We found it on Wednesday. And everybody stayed there. We had to pay extra fees because all of our, all of our vendors, so makeup, hair, cake, now we're going out of state. So out of state, across the street, literally. You can take the train. But the train, I mean, it was harder because you have to pay to get out of New Jersey into New York. So it becomes, we had to pay for travel for those people to come bring everything. We changed all of our food at the last, I mean, we order our food the day of the wedding. In the morning.
Catering.
Because, and we did it through, we did it through Uber Eats.
Yeah, we just Uber
did it through Uber
Eats
catering. Because it was literally for just 10 people.
Oh, shoot.
We did it the same day. And we just scheduled it for a certain time.
The night before, we just walked to the liquor store, bought a few bottles.
Of alcohol. and the cake was set, the makeup and hair was set, and then everything else was just kind of, we'll just figure it out as it happens the whole day.
And we're grateful for the people who came.
Yeah.
Very much.
And we ended up having a Zoom so that all of our family and friends that couldn't be there could watch it. But we knew that having to do that wasn't necessarily what we had dreamed of at some point, but it was what was best for our family, for the health of the people around us. It was incredible. I remember crying for like 3 days straight. Like I couldn't, because having to tell people, I'm so sorry you invested into coming, and then they couldn't come.
I remember they announced the 10 people minimum, and then like she didn't talk to me for like 3 days. Like
it was so hard.
I was like, you could have thought I started COVID. That's how distant she put herself from me, because it was just a lot.
It was a lot. And I was by myself in New York, have been putting everything together for the past 6 months. Like,
we'd buy stuff and I'd ship it to New York.
So I had gifts for everybody. I had, my cousins were in New York and they couldn't come to the wedding.
They took a trip a few days before our wedding, planned it back in the summer. Like, oh, we're gonna hang out in New York and then come to the wedding. And I'm like, that makes so much freaking sense. And they get trapped in their hotel and they can't even come hang out with us.
Well, they were able to go out. We just couldn't have them because that would put us over the 10 people. So my brother was in New York and then flew to North Carolina because all of them already had flights.
Brother and Sylvia.
And they just couldn't come. So it was hard. But again, it was one of those things that directly affects people every day. We were able to make the best out of it, and we were able to turn it into something incredible. But it was serious, and had we not made the best decision to do that, we could have put a lot of people in danger. Really. Like really had gotten them sick or whatever could have happened.
I look back on that and as frustrating, and I mean there's so much more to our wedding story than what we're even telling you, because it's just so freaking much. But by the time the 10 person minimum came about, or maximum came about, I mean, it was like we were just gonna go, all right, we're going on the honeymoon, and we'll just...
Well, we really did say at some point. Because everybody was so forgiving. Like, our makeup and hair and our cake person, they were so sweet. They were like, we get it. I mean, everybody gets affected by this. This is not just us. This was right before Thanksgiving. Like, 1 week before Thanksgiving. And I'm so sorry about that. My brother's calling me. Andres, I can't answer
actually,
right
they're
now.
getting vaccinated right now. So.
Oh, that's probably why they're calling us right now.
So congratulations.
Yeah,
you're getting
he's probably
vaccinated.
going to watch this or hear this. So you
Actually,
interrupted our podcast,
Yeah.
Andres.
You want to answer it,
Thank
actually?
you.
We're already here.
No.
Yeah, come on.
No,
Let's leave this
not
in.
gonna, no.
All right.
I don't know what they're going to say.
All right, you're right. Sorry.
But that was just a snippet. Personally, I had very specific people that got directly affected by COVID. Friends had lost people, right? But my aunt got really sick to where we were genuinely very scared.
Yes.
And she's in her early 40s.
Yeah.
She's pretty young.
Yeah,
She doesn't have breathing problems. Super normal. And someone that stayed at home, that never went anywhere, that
washed her groceries.
Literally probably got it from going to the grocery store once because she had to go get food. But even then, like, she was that person that would come home and disinfect everything that came from the grocery store, right? And she got it, and she was sick for almost over a month, going in and out of the hospital. They couldn't get her in the hospital because there weren't enough space.
Yep.
So here they just send you home and give you all this medication and hope you make it, right? Like, it's pretty much how it is at some point. His parents...
Yep.
Both of them got COVID. His dad got really sick from it.
Yep.
And again, it was like the state calls you and says,
don't
make sure you don't leave the house. Please make sure you get all this medication and let us know. If you really can't breathe, come in. But if not, there's not much we can do for you here. I had one of my really close friends was sick for almost 3 months where she couldn't even... get out of bed, and she was also quarantined to her room because her parents didn't have COVID. We're talking about this because we want to share how it affected us to allow people to share how it affected them.
There are so many sides of the pandemic that people are taking, and it's just extremely frustrating. I don't take a side.
Right.
I take the road of empathy.
That's right. That's all you can really
That's
do.
all I care about. If you tell me, we're fully vaccinated, high five. We love it.
Are.
But if I was to go to someplace and somebody asked me, hey, could you still wear a mask? Guess what I'm going to do?
Absolutely.
I'm going to wear a mask because I don't know what they're going through.
Right.
We're not even talking about, for our personal life, we had to change our entire bridal shower, engagement party, everything, and there were still people that we knew personally that were frustrated by the choices we made to make it, get a test or wear a mask or these things. It's like, we're just asking you to do the bare minimum. I'm not even asking you to wear a hazmat suit or don't touch my son or whatever. I don't know. And so now on the other side of all of this, we're married, thank God. Our parents are still here. Your aunt is still here, thank God. Mm-hmm. Our friend graduated with a master's degree, even after being quarantined and cooped up for 3 months.
Yeah.
And yet I still lost Bachan. And here we are on the other side, fully vaccinated. And all I still want from people is to just have some humanity.
It's humanity.
That's all I want.
And that's what we want to share here. And that's what the stories are, right? It's making it human. It's realizing that it has affected people all over the world. It's not just in our house. It's not just in our country. It's all over the world. And we are blessed enough to be in a country that we can run to the hospital.
Yes.
And they'll at least give us something, right?
Yes.
There are places around the world that don't even have that are dying on the street, that are in stretchers in a park because there is no...
Or in other countries
locations.
Where they just, keep them outside of the hospital and they say, when you're ready to die, come in. It's things like that or whatever. It's just unbelievable to me that, a public health crisis became a litmus test for, are you a sheep or not? That's so dumb. That's so frustrating. Because even now, once COVID is dealt with, which I firmly believe it will be, I have a high hope that there'll be, herd immunity and vaccines will continue to go up and all these things. Even after this has passed, what I have now taken away from all of this is listening to people or reading between the lines of their life with what they're asking you to do when approaching them, when listening to their stories, when looking at their life. And I'm not talking about their Instagram life because that's all fake anyway. I can't tell you how many people I know who denied COVID was a deal, then got it and never talked about it because they were deep into the fact that they were strongly thinking it was fake. And it's just like, that's fake. Everything about Instagram is fake. So they're real lives. And leaning into the humanity of saying, whatever it is that makes you comfortable with us being humans with each other, let's do that. In church, in the grocery store, at a dinner party, whatever that may be. And it shouldn't have taken me losing so much. Our wedding, my bachan.
I mean, we didn't lose our wedding. It
Well,
was just a whole different idea
dream
of
of
what
it.
it ended up being, right?
Mm-hmm. But I look back on those pictures, and they're sweet.
Yeah.
They remind me of so much.
Yeah. But all of this specifically today, deciding to talk about it at this moment and bringing you guys into our lives and what we have gone through because of it and where we are now, where we're vaccinated, and now that opens up the opportunity to do things we couldn't do before, right? And be around people we couldn't be around before, and making sure that we're still being safe, and we're still going to have our masks with us just in case someone is not vaccinated, and we want to make sure they're being safe too. But this is just to open up our lives into sharing our story, because we're getting to a point in which we got through a whole year of just crisis after crisis after crisis, and so much loss as a country of people, of humanity, of care, of love and compassion, that at the end of it, we can come back and say, not only did we do the best that we could, but we want to make sure that we're sharing our story to allow for reconciliation from other people that need to know they're not the only ones going through this stuff. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're surrounded by people that don't think the same way that you do, and you need to just be reminded, hey, there are people out there that have gone through really hard situations. Maybe you're going through having to redo your whole wedding, and you might see me so stupid that you're even worried about a wedding when there are people dying. But really, we are all going through loss and death, even if it's not like a human death. Yeah. We went through death in this country, through death of what we used to think was normal, what our everyday will look like, and so many businesses that closed down. I mean, this was a chapter in which we all became united by one common thing. This was like the change of our environment, the change of everything that we knew. Yeah. So we are using this time to really share our story, but really just invite anybody that's watching to really feel like it's okay to be where you are, and it's okay to feel however way you feel, and it's okay to think that the stupid little things that you are struggling with because of COVID are not stupid and little if they're affecting you in any way, shape, or form.
That's absolutely correct.
There shouldn't be a need to compare
trauma.
Like, trauma is trauma, regardless of how big or little it is. Yes. And you have to process that in your own way. The trauma of a wedding doesn't compare to his trauma as his grandmother dying, right? So we could never see eye to eye in that, but we could see trauma as being trauma. And that's what unites us. And that's what unites us from the people watching, and our family and our friends. And we wanted to publicly be able to open up our hearts to allow other people to open up theirs, and create an atmosphere in our channel of just support and care in humanity, where we just share love through our storytelling of our lives.
You know, one thing that we've not done before, but I would like to do it now, is if you're listening or watching, find a way to contact us, and we want to hear your COVID story.
Yeah.
A way it impacted you, a way that your views on certain aspects of life have changed. We would just love to hear it. And
hey, if you send it to us and you feel comfortable, we will share it.
We'd love to share it.
We have no problem using our platform to make other voices be heard.
Absolutely.
So if you have a story, and we can definitely share it on our Instagram, we can share it on our feed, whatever we need to do. If you feel if you just want to tell us just because you want to share with someone, that's what we're here for. But if you want to also have it be seen by other people, and you think you could impact someone, then absolutely, that's what this is for. You can message us. You can go to on Instagram and email us, or we handle our own Instagram for our 50 followers. But
you're faithful.
You're one of them.
We love you.
Send us your questions, your processing, what you went through. If you're struggling with it, this is an atmosphere of truth and humanity, but we want to make sure that it's also an atmosphere of support. And we are positive channel. Yeah, so whatever you want to share, we're here to kind of listen to it.
You want to close us out today with the quote of the month?
Yeah, so to close
the quote
of the podcast. The end of the quote for today, it is by Reba McEntire.
Love that show.
Love her.
Reba.
That was like a forever long show.
If you're watching, Reba, we love you.
If Reba's watching,
my Cash App will be in the...
Yep, we'll put our Cash App if you want to, either sponsor or support our channel. But her quote was, "All the money on the world cannot buy you back good health." And that became really true with this season. It didn't discriminate. This virus does not discriminate. It affected rich, powerful, as well as it affected homeless people and
middle class, whoever.
And whatever class you were in, or whatever race you're in, or whatever sexual orientation. It affected
cats.
It affected cats for a moment. So that became really true for us, because I think health is one of those. It was the first time I feel as a country that we couldn't rely on all the money in the world.
My gosh, like how many people do we know that jobs wanted them to go back in, and they said, no, I'm not going to go back into work at the expense of my health. Like what?
Right.
Bag groceries for $7.25 an hour. Listen, money. I'm not downplaying minimum wage work, but come on, you understand that, correct? Like my gosh. So the
health is
your health
more important.
It's what you've got left.
And that's what united everybody in this pandemic.
Yes.
Was that it didn't matter how much money you had, and if you can get the best doctors, we were all on the same playing field, because no one knew what the heck was happening.
That's right.
And we were all together in it regardless. So I think that quote really resonated with both of us. And that's what made us put health as a priority in our life.
So, like we said before, hit us up on Instagram at the Kondos. We would love to hear your story, or leave a comment on YouTube. We like to respond to those. Give us a follow, subscribe, all those things. Once again, we are your biggest fans.
Andrea.
Gavin, and we enjoyed sharing our COVID story with you. And we'll see you guys next time.